Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Power of Exposure. Thank you so much for listening and tuning in. We are in for a wonderful treat. I have here today as our guest speaker, Miss Arlene Rodriguez. She is a phenomenal high school student and she's just doing some great things. And I can't wait to see where she ends up in life. And I just hope I live long enough to see all the wonderful things she accomplishes and mostly the people that she will help along the way, because she has, just as much as she is so beautiful, she has a big heart. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to Arlene Rodriguez. Hi,
Hi.
Arlene.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good, good, good. So tell the wonderful Power of Exposure audience all about you. Tell us a little bit about where you're from and some of your great news that just happened.
Yeah. So, hi, I'm Arlene Rodriguez. I'm a current senior at Berkeley Tech, and I major in law and justice. I'm from Teaneck, and kind of my good news is that I got accepted early decision to Cornell University.
I don't know why it broke up a little bit. Say that one more time. It's like you're going in and out just a little bit.
Yeah. So, I'm Arlene. I'm from Teaneck, and I'm a current senior at Bergen Tech in law and justice. And kind of my good news is that I just got accepted into Cornell.
Woo woo, Cornell, Ivy League. Woo woo. And is that the number one school for you?
Yes, that was my number
Okay.
one.
Nice, nice, nice. And how many schools overall did you apply to?
Well, I only got to apply to 5 early action, but I was planning on applying to 6 more, so 11 around that.
Okay, so you're done. You don't have to do any more applications.
Yep.
How do you feel about that, honestly? Because cause sometimes people like to see all those acceptance letters. How do you feel about the fact that you really can't apply anymore?
Well, I'm kind of disappointed that I couldn't have seen like what if maybe if I would have gone into Georgetown, Syracuse, or George Washington, some of my other like top schools. But I do think that kind of like my hard work did pay off, and now I get to sit back and enjoy my holiday. And so far, I've gotten accepted to all the colleges I applied to, so it's pretty a win-win situation.
It is a win-win situation, but that's a big decision. It's called early decision when you commit.
Yeah, it's binding.
Yeah, I'm going to say, because when I was helping my son apply to colleges, it can be a little bit of confusion, right, with those two. And, for anybody watching, if you don't know, ask someone, call me, talk to your guidance counselor, but definitely know what you're doing before you check those boxes, because from what I understand with of the binding contract of early decision, is the only way you can really get out of that is if they come back with a financial package that you really can't afford. But usually if they really want you, they're going to match, so it's kind of cool because it really gives you the upper hand, right? You have a better chance of getting in when you apply like this.
Yeah, and especially if it's an Ivy League school, they're all need blind. So if they really want you, since their acceptance rate is so low, they're most likely going to meet you because they're going to say, hey, like, I want you, we want you to come here. And they have a lot of donors and a lot of sponsors too. So they
Wow.
have somewhere to pull that out of.
Can you explain that term need blind for our listeners?
Yeah, so they don't kind of what my understanding of it is that they don't necessarily look at how much you need for finances when they're taking into consideration your application. So that's not something they necessarily look at. Instead, they look at you as a whole, and then kind of at the end, if they like you as a whole, then they say, okay, we're going to meet you for whatever it is that you need.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. All right. So you're born and raised, well, not born, but you were raised mostly, you spent most of you were born in Teaneck. Oh, okay. Okay. So Arlene and my family and her family met when Arlene was in second grade. I think it was at the bus stop, correct?
I
And
think it was in kindergarten.
kindergarten. Okay, okay. So she's like my sixth child, and I don't know how she feels about me calling her that, but I'm gonna forever do that. So yeah, so we've known each other in the family a long time. So First of all, great news. Congratulations. I'm so, so, so proud of you. I'm really not surprised. And I don't know how you feel about that either, because, like, wait a minute, everybody expected me to do so well, which also can sometimes put a lot of pressure on a person. But, I think as long as you love what you're doing, that's the most important thing. And I think that's why I'm so happy for you, because I really think you're on a track that you really enjoy and love. It would be different if you just got in and you didn't really know what you wanted to do, but you are on a mission. And can you tell us a little bit about that mission that you're on, your major, and then who and where and what is your big support system and is the reason you're where you are now?
Okay, yeah. So kind of like starting off with that, I think I'm very fortunate to have learned at such a young age what it is that I want to kind of like do in life and what my interests are. So for Cornell, in terms of that, I'm going to be majoring in the major named Industrial Labor Relations. It's a school within Cornell, but it's also its own major. So it's a school, but it only has one major, and it's that. And kind of like I'm going to be focusing on labor policy, labor laws, and kind of like the business aspects that go into that and the psychological like approach to that too. So it's a mix of policy, government, business, and psychology. And so I guess starting from where my interest came was in a fifth grade project that I did with my teacher. So as a kid, they always had a project where you would be assigned a person to research and you had to write a big research paper. It was like 1 page, but that was a lot back then. And so I remember it was for Hispanic Heritage Month, and there were many other famous people on the list, like Shakira, like so many other Hispanic leaders, like in pop culture that I recognize. So when I kind of got my person, I was a little bit disappointed because I was like, I don't know this person. Like, why do I have to research them? Like, it's so boring. So my person ended up being Sonia Sotomayor, who we know is the first ever Hispanic female justice or first Hispanic justice in the Supreme Court. And
Wow.
so it's kind of from there, I guess I'm grateful to my fifth grade teacher for giving me that project. I kind of researched her up and I said, wow, like she looks like me. She comes from the same background as me. We're both Puerto Rican. We both were basically raised like around New York. And it's something that I can do later on in life. And so she kind of taught me from that early age that I was able to succeed on my own terms as a Latina.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, it all pretty much started from there.
Wow, wow. So you talked about your mom. How was she able to support you? So if there are moms out here, and I know personally that your mom's a single mom and an amazing single mom, what would you say to? Because I know at one point I was a single mom, and I know how daunting it is for you to just want so much for your child, and it's not only about money; it's just about making sure they have everything they need. So what would you say to a parent who just feels like I hope I can do this and my child can end up like Arlene when she's a senior in high school?
So definitely my mom has always been my biggest support system throughout my whole entire life. I like to say she's like my mom, my sister, my best friend all in one, and she supported me in all like my endeavors. So I think that one thing that I would suggest to parents is kind of like listen to your child at a young age and listen to all of their interests and kind of you may not be able to do something about that financially, but just take it in and kind of like push them to do that. So like for example, I remember in middle school I was big on science and I loved science. And through that I was nominated through a program. It was called Envision and it kind of focused on STEM and just a lot of like engineering, medical, and environmental sciences. It was very expensive, but my mom was like, hey, I obviously can't afford it all at once, but if this is something you really want to do and you want to explore the field of science, then let's see, maybe you'll like it as a career. I ended up going to the camp and I hated it completely. So all that money went down to the drain. But at the end of the day, my mom kind of helped me figure out that I don't like science and maybe I do like that was in eighth grade, but I was like, maybe my fifth grade self was telling me something when law is something that I want to pursue.
Right.
So
Wow.
Yeah, that's kind of when I started first opening up about law. And once my mom heard law, she was like, let's go. Like, let's reach for the stars.
I
So,
love it. What was the name of that program you did in eighth grade? Seventh grade, Envision?
yeah, it was called Envision, but I don't remember the whole name. I remember that it was at Babson College that year, and you
Okay.
had to be nominated by, it was based on like by nomination by teachers. So,
So, you mentioned something about maybe money going down the drain. I honestly look at that as I'm not really sure how expensive it was, but it's probably cheaper than college credits.
yeah.
So I look at things like that, and this you said some powerful things for parents to understand and hear. As investing in your children at that age is actually a good thing, because I know I've seen programs and I'm like, man, I wish I could afford for my kid to do this. And some things are like, you know what, you really can't afford for them not to do it, because look how much money you save. So now you're a senior. Say you got into Cornell and you majored in biology or something else because you really thought you liked science and you never did that I'm just saying, this is what could have happened. And so now you spend a year or 2 years at Cornell and you're like, I hate this. And
Yeah.
now you're like, oh no. And so you spent money, and sometimes that comes with a price of, like, you don't want to tell your family that you want to change your major, because now everybody's like, oh my God, Arlene's gonna be a surgeon. You know, you know how that happens. And then you're like, how do I tell? We've seen it in TV shows.
Yeah.
And so I think that investment was definitely money well spent, because it allowed you at seventh grade to, like, switch this, you're still good at math and science, but at least switch and look at something else. So I think what you said is so powerful and so important. So I'm glad you said that. So I know you're excited about Cornell. Do you know if there's like any program you do prior to starting freshman year, or do you know anything about that yet?
So, yeah, actually, this past Sunday we had our first Zoom call as an ILR major, which is short for Industrial Labor Relations. Um, for now, it's kind of like just waiting and seeing my financial aid package. And I also have to just wait for all the regular decision applicants to get to be applied. And then they said we kind of start meeting one-on-one to pick my classes, and then we head into like freshman orientation around July or August. So not
Wow.
necessarily a program, but it's all just getting to know the campus, getting to know your new friends and classmates. And
Wow.
yeah,
That's so exciting that you just got your letter last week and
yeah.
you already had your first Zoom meeting. That's exciting. Wow. So now, do you know how many students will be in this major, or how is it a big major? Is it a pretty small?
So ILR is one of the smaller schools at Cornell because there's only one major within the school. So I'm not sure necessarily how many. I think it's about, I want to say like 200 students or 180. But
Wow.
what I did find out during that Zoom call was that there were about 400 or so applicants, and they only picked 66 of us for early decision. So
Wow. That is so beautiful. So since you mentioned your major a couple of times, I really want, because there's so many different majors. Like when I went to college, it was like, I don't know, we might have had 10 or 20 things, but now it's huge. How were you able to zoom in on this particular major in this particular school? And what will you do with this major when you graduate?
yeah, so I guess I would love to give thanks to like my Bergen Tech community and my law and justice program, because the ILR school has kind of been the major that law students go into from my school. So they're known to accept kids within my major. Um, my teacher, Mrs. Allard, was kind of who like shaped me into liking this major, and she introduced me to a lot of alumni. But basically, what this major is, how I described before, it's business, psych, government, and policy. So my first 2 years, I have to complete certain required courses. And then what I love about that major is that you can kind of tailor it to how you see fit and what you want to do when you grow up. So for my last 2 years, like junior and senior year, I can tailor it towards a focus on business, or I can tailor it to take more government classes or more psychology classes. So
Mm.
yeah, ultimately my personal goal is I would like to turn the ILR major into a focus in law and government. And then kind of after Cornell, what I want to do with that degree, I'm not sure if I want to take a year off to do work like in the field, or the plan is eventually law school. So I
Right.
kind of have those two routes opened up for now.
Wow, that's so exciting. Wow. And that's really important too, having the end in mind and working back from there, so you can kind of stay on track. I think the worst thing for any student, whether they're in middle school or high school or college, is to get close to the finish line and realize there was something you didn't complete or something you could have done that would have helped you more. Um, if you anybody listening who follows me on Instagram or Facebook, we had a young man who is a senior in college. He plays football for Howard, who just did a talk on how important internships are. And I know you're actually interning now, and I asked him to do a really short talk about it, because a lot of people of color don't know this, and we don't even know that we're supposed to be doing this, and that this is the segue into your job possibility. And it's kind of like that program at Babson College. It gives you a kind of a nice view of the culture of a particular corporation. And so if you do an internship with them for like 8 weeks or whatever, and you're like, yeah, this is not what I thought it was. That's so saving you so much time, because sometimes people graduate college, start a job, and stay there forever and they hate it. And so this is what we're trying to do, that you have options and you don't have to do that. So can you tell us a little bit about your internship, how many you've had, what they were, and a little bit about them?
Yeah, so like how you said, I feel like I've definitely learned more about the kind of like the professional field with these internships. So now, as of this past year, I've had 3 internships. My first two I got like during the beginning of the pandemic. So the first one that I had, they're all kind of with the same focus, which kind of goes to show like if you like a specific topic, do things within that topic and see the different aspects of it. So for me, it's law. My first internship that I secured was working for Josh Gottheimer for Congress, his campaign. And so through that, I kind of got to know kind of like the grassroots level of organizing a campaign, reaching out to constituents, making uncomfortable phone calls to people who may not want to be on the phone with you. So it was kind of like just starting low. And that kind of taught me that maybe don't necessarily like the politics aspect of law. Maybe I want to stick just to like strict law. Um, and then that led me to my second internship, which I'm still currently doing. It's called Ridgewood Jolt. I am an intern there, and what I do is it's a political advocacy group. So what we do is pretty much we kind of like raise awareness about what's going on today in the political climate and who's running, who we want to support, why we want to support them, and things to do like outreach and why it's important to cast your vote, especially if you're a person of color as well. And so kind of like from this, my mentor, her name's Kathy Brienz, and she entrusted me with kind of like coming up with a campaign targeted towards the Hispanic populations of swing states. So my main focus was on Pennsylvania, and kind of what we did was that I came up with kind of questions to ask members who spoke Spanish so we can show this to the Hispanic voter population. And so with this, as the election can show, Pennsylvania was one of the most important swing states, and Hispanic voter turnout was at an all-time high. So who knows, maybe it was because of my work, or maybe it helped a little bit, you know? And then, yeah, um,
Thank you.
you know, my last internship, and I secured this one about September with my school because our school requires us every Wednesday to go to an internship instead of going to school. I'm working at a law firm under the immigration sector. I'm working for attorney Jerry Gonzalez. And so kind of like through this, I've furthered my skills that I've gained through the law and justice major. And I help read case briefs, analyzing laws, helping him bring laws from like 2001, 2002, and seeing if he can use it in the courtroom, what we can do to kind of talk to our legislatures. Maybe we can fix these laws to have it benefit those people of color. And so, yeah, it all comes like full circle.
Wow, that's amazing. And you're in high school. I just want to remind everybody that she is in high school. And, a lot of good things that come out of this kind of exposure also, guys, is learning how to network, learning soft skills. And people throw that around a lot, but that's just learning how to speak in a certain situation and, how to listen, how to dress, how to, just so many different things that we're just not born with. And so you have to be taught. And if you're not in those environments, if you're not in maybe, um, if you've never been to like a gala, like you wouldn't really know what to do and how to act. And I mean, I even remember having to learn like some etiquette type stuff about when you're eating. So sometimes when you're at these type of exposure programs, whether it's like a week long program or a weekend type of thing or a daily thing, you learn things that you learn how to be a public speaker because not everybody is comfortable with that. Is that something you had to learn, or do you feel like you were always comfortable with public speaking?
Well, I've always been a very outgoing person, but I definitely think that my involvement in the law and justice major has opened me up because that's actually a unit that we learn with our teacher, Miss Allard. She teaches us soft skills, and she has us. So, a part of a class that I took during my major was called Super Public Policy. Within this class, it's a Syracuse University kind of sponsors this class and gives it to our school. So, we had the task of finding a public policy issue within our county and kind of like finding a solution to ameliorate that. So with coming to that solution, I had to interview many government officials, lawyers, pretty much anybody in the field that could help. And while I was interviewing a couple, they are actually parents of a student within our major, and they're also lawyers. They introduced me to the Hispanic National Bar Foundation's program, and it was called the Latino Leaders Law Camp in Washington, D.C. And that program changed my life. Like, from that program, I've gained basically all of my professional skills that I have today because so there were about hundreds of applicants and they only chose 32 students at the national level to spend a week completely free. It's a scholarship-based program in Washington, D.C., and I spent my whole time going to law firms, going to government institutions, and meeting real people in the workforce. And so through this, like you said, we may not know how to do things like go to a gala. From that program that I went to, there it ended in a gala. So
Wow.
I was able to actually sit next to a person who works at the Department of Justice. And
Wow.
so kind of what I learned through that program is that we don't necessarily have to agree on what we're talking about, but as long as you have the soft skills necessary and the education to kind of like back up your answer, you're able to get any point across. Like, for example, that guy that I was sitting next to at dinner, I didn't know that this was going to happen. Like, we have different political views, but at the end of the day, we had a difficult yet engaging conversation. At the time, I was only 16 years old. So he
Wow.
was probably thinking, like, what is this 16-year-old like talking to me about immigration policy for and like why she believes this way? But at the end of the day, he was like, okay, here's my number. When you're back in DC, maybe we can have a chat.
Wow.
So it all comes together. And I think that through that program, I I recommend it to high school students 100%.
So you said something really powerful. So you're at a gala, you're sitting next to someone that what could have happened is you could have sat there all night and said nothing. Or
Yeah.
could have just been like, okay, or, like very little because you might have been really super shy or just not used to talking like that in a situation. But that comes with practice. And that's why I think that that's a great reason why I think that I've encouraged so many young people to do as much as you can and getting out there and getting out of your comfort zone because just even interviewing for something that maybe ultimately you're not going to take, but if you have the opportunity, that's practice. And every time my kids are, they call it rejection, I say, it's probably protection because maybe you weren't supposed to be there. But that is another opportunity to practice your skills so you'll be ready for the next time. And it makes you work a little harder too.
Yeah, it just gives you the experience. And even though it may be a rejection or it may not be something you like, you gain something through every encounter that you have in life. So it's always important to look at the positive aspects of things. Like that guy we were talking about, Sonia Sotomayor, at the end of the day, he was like, I don't see what's so great about her. I obviously didn't think, I thought the opposite, but at the end, we were able to gain mutual respect. And at 16-year-old, the fact that I was able to have a conversation with that, I look back and I'm like, I was like so scared that night just to talk to him. I was like, am I using the right fork? Am I sitting the right way? And it just like at the end of the day, I was just like, all right, sit back and just be Arlene. And that
There
kind
you
of,
go. That's so beautiful. And you know what, even adults, as adults, we get really nervous when we're in certain situations, and sometimes you just got to push through it and then realize that, guess what, they're just another human being, and just because they've gained access or they have certain degrees, they were one time 16. And so I love that you were able to sit and have a conversation with someone that you don't agree on some of the same views with, and that's called maturity, and that's so beautiful. So you talked about your mom, but I know you come from a village, and do you want to give a shout out to your village, because your village is strong, and I think that's so important. Whether it's family and or family and friends, it's just so important to have people in your corner that are always being your cheerleaders. So you want
yeah.
to give them a shout out?
Definitely. I've been raised by everybody. Like you said, it takes a village. Like my grandma, my grandpa, my aunt have raised me, but like my two parents, who it's not the traditional parents, but definitely my uncle and my mom, they've both always served. They're always saying, we got this place, we got to here in life, but we want you to accomplish twice as much as we did. And even though they came from, not that they didn't come from nothing, but they were immigrants and they didn't know anything about this country, and the fact that they're both more successful than half of the people who have lived there their whole lives, that
Amen.
just goes to show, imagine me, I was born here, I was raised here, how much more can I accomplish? So
Amen.
they've always pushed me, and they've always taught me that at the end of the day, education is what's most important. You can go anywhere, but as long as you have a degree, as long as you have something to back you up, it's always going to bring you far in life.
Wow. So, I wanted to ask you about going to Cornell. I don't know what the ratio is of Latinos or people of color. How do you feel about that? And do they have a support system for people of color?
Yeah, so I definitely think that Cornell is one of the most diverse IVs, which is something that I like because although Bergen Tech has given me a lot of resources, I don't feel that it's necessarily as diverse as it could be. So, kind of, I think that going through this, the first thing that I looked for was diversity within whatever I'm applying to. So, within the ILR school, I found that there's this group called MILARSO, and it's my minorities in the industrial labor relationship student organization. And
Nice.
so what they do is they kind of, I wrote this in like my supplement essay too, that I want to join this club because what they do is not only is that they foster like a safe environment for people of color, but they also help people of color kind of gain internships and gain experience in the professional world. So that's something that I'm looking forward to when I go up to Ithaca to maybe join and just be a part of a new family, I guess. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. And just knowing about that program, and that's just a really good piece of advice that you said. Doing your research on your school, or the school that you're looking at. Schools can tell from your essay and from, and they can even tell from some computer stuff. I don't even know what it is, whether you're even looking and you're on the website and that kind of stuff, but doing your research about your school and your major and being prepared for, I don't know, did you have to have an interview with them for
No,
Cornell?
no school. No.
But and even if it's just an internship or a job interview, always do your research. Don't because that just goes to show that you're interested, you really care. People can tell, they can tell when you don't are not really interested. And when colleges are choosing students, I truly believe, from friends who've been admissions and recruiters, that they're looking for well-rounded kids. It's just not enough to be a great student and a good grades, but they want someone who is going to bring something to the school, right?
100%.
And also somebody who may be so famous that will leave a legacy, and that's definitely going to graduate. So they really want they're really looking at all of that kind of stuff when you're accepted to a college.
Yeah, I was gonna say like I don't know why, but I've been saying this kind of like the past week. I feel like it's been a miracle that I got into Cornell because I'm not, some may say I'm like a great student, but compared to the other students in my school, I'm not the cookie cutter perfect kid. In my school, the average GPA is maybe 3.8, 3.9, 4.0. I got into Cornell on paper with a 3.6 and no SAT, no ACT scores, nothing. I kind of just gave them my resume. I said, here's what I've done. And then I guess kind of like important with that whole doing your research, in my supplement essays, I made sure I told them what it is that I like about their programs. And I kind of tailored it to kind of focus on what it is that I want to do on that. So I named all of these professors, all these classes, that group that I liked, the club. And at the end of the day, I said that law lacks one thing, and that's minority representation. And so with an ILR degree, that's what I'm going to set out to do. So, yeah.
I love it. So how could they say no? So this was no miracle. This is a miracle. They're like waiting. If they could bring you up there now, they would. They're like, bring her now. You talked about SUPA, which is Syracuse University
Project
project.
Advance.
Okay. So I know that many students go into college with college credits. Did you take advantage of that? Were you able to take some of the SUPA courses?
Yeah, I within like my school, my past 4 years, I have about 30 credits or so, 20 something credits. And so that can kind of take me to like half a year. However, unfortunately, because I'm going to be going to an Ivy League school, they don't accept those credits.
Right.
So, like, you would think of it as money wasted, but I got that exposure to a college class.
Right.
And I know what it means to be a college student now because I've been exposed to all those things. So,
Right.
it has its benefits at the end
Oh,
of the day.
definitely. And you know what? And it's funny you say that because my son, went to the same school and we talked about that as well, like weighing it because we were like, so what school are you going to end up going to? But I don't think it's money wasted. I think those courses are and listen, you can always say you entered college with 27 courses or however many credits rather. And so this just a really good point. I want to just make sure parents understand that when you're in eighth grade, before you get to high school, as soon as you get to high school, find this information out, seek it out. It's not usually something that is front and center. So a lot of times you have to ask, depending on the type of high school you go to. For my son, we had to kind of look for it, and I know our new superintendent is doing such a great job of making sure more kids have credits. But some kids come into college and they're almost a sophomore, so you have that advantage. Sometimes there are partnerships with local universities or local community colleges, so take advantage. You're talking about thousands of dollars you save. So if you have to pay $1,000 for a course, trust me, I complained when my son was in high school versus maybe I don't even know what it costs at the college level, but much more. Trust me when I say it is so worth it. And you never know. With my son, my oldest son, his a course he ended up placing him out of one of the highest business courses. So that was like, whoa, super exciting and and money worth. And then like you said, you were able to see that you can complete a college course. So that just builds up your self-confidence.
Yeah.
So I just want to talk a little bit about, so I know you've been winning. You've been in situations and you've been winning, winning, winning. Have you ever had situations you've ever tried and you weren't winning, or you were like, yeah, this is not for me, and you've dealt with like some rejection or even depression, because I know kids are going through a lot of different things. And how did you function and focus or get through that?
Yeah, so I feel like my first kind of struggle with like kind of just knowing like who I am, what I have to offer came with my acceptance to Bergen Tech. So from middle school, I was valedictorian of my class. I was class president. I was president of all these clubs, and I was doing everything that I possibly could to stand out.
Yeah.
Coming into Bergen Tech, it was like the environment was, okay, all these kids on paper have the same grade as you, but what do you have to offer? What makes Arlene special? So in the beginning, I kind of struggled with that, and especially with grades. I think sophomore year definitely I had my first C in a class. I went from having a 3.8 my freshman year to having a 3.2 sophomore year, and that was a big like mental toll on me. Um, Chemistry was just not my class. But it's all about like for me at the end of the day it was I would the light at the end of the tunnel I guess was what do I want to do in my future? And so that always like encouraged me to keep going because I was like, okay, maybe I won't get into Harvard, maybe I won't get into wherever. I ended up getting into an Ivy League school, so it shows you like you'll be okay. But
With the C, you still did.
yeah,
I
with
love
this and I still got in. Yeah. And so it was just like keeping your goals like straight ahead. No matter what's gonna happen, like you're gonna be okay at the end of the day. At the end of the day, I was like, I want to be a lawyer to do what? To help people, to help marginalized communities. A C in chemistry isn't going to stop me from doing that.
it.
So
Amen.
then I feel like after sophomore year is when I started to like blossom, I guess, because I was like, okay, I was a failure, I guess, last year, or like I failed at one of my goals. What am I going to do junior year to change that around? And junior year, I had my first like 4.0 for a marking period.
Wow.
I was thriving. I got into National Honor Society. I became like vice president of student council. And it's all about like, okay, reaching your low, but then how am I going to get up from that? So
Right.
that's kind of what helped me personally.
I love it. I love it. And that's really important to share with young people because things are going to happen. You're going to have bad days, you're going to have bad tests. You may have a bad marking period or a bad year. It happens and you're going to get through it. And there are colleges that are looking for you no matter what. Just stay, like Marlene said, just keep your goals in front of you. So I know you did extracurricular stuff like you did Girl Scouts, which was great, and you're also now doing which we did a lot of exposure in our Girl Scout troop. Our troop was very a traditional troop, not a traditional troop. It was Black and Latina girls who I was so busy I could not do a traditional let's make I don't know, something. We couldn't do that. We had to be on the move, on the road. I found opportunities to take them any and everywhere I could, and one of those programs was the Color of Justice. You want to talk a little bit about that, because if that comes up and you're in New Jersey, definitely attend.
Yeah, so kind of that was my first time. I remember it was at Rutgers. We got up early that day and I was like, okay, like why is she dragging me to another program?
Saturday.
I know. I was like, come on, like I can go shopping now. I can do something else, but I ended up going. Um, and it turned out to be one of the most beneficial programs I've ever attended at such a young age. I think I was a freshman in high school, and that was kind of the first time that I was actively exposed to the field of law. And kind of like I saw many professionals that were excelling in this field, and they were people of color. So that's something that I definitely haven't didn't see, I guess, at that age. And so they kind of taught me a lot about exposure and a lot of different things that I can do at the high school level that can kind of like help later on, I guess, with my career and like what I want to do. So it was kind of just like that, um, keeping your goal straight ahead. So that kind of like furthered me into continuing that.
Yeah, that was a powerful event, even for me as an adult, and seeing so many women of I think they were all women, right? All so many women who were judges and lawyers, and I was like, oh wow! And then they invited the young ladies to come up and just sit in the seats. It was just powerful. So just if you hear about it and if it's still going on, I definitely hey maybe you'll be running it one day. Of justice. Yeah, definitely. That was, a powerful event. So I'm glad you talked about how you handled different, things in your life. I'm trying to see if there were any other particular questions that you touched on that I wanted to. I love that Latina Leaders Law Camp. That is just amazing. That is just amazing. There was one other question I know I had for you, and it's escaping me right now. But I just want you to know that I am super proud of you. Your teachers, the whole town of Teaneck is just loving on you, and we're just so grateful that you've made it thus far on your journey, and so much more that we're looking forward. Whatever that journey turns out to, because you know what, sometimes you get to certain things and you try something and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I like this. And that's really what college is kind of all about too, is, just exposure, more exposure on a different level. So wherever this takes you, and hopefully, I know you had mentioned before about Supreme Court. Wow. And then, I got bigger plans for you. Like straight to the White House.
It's all about, like, I've learned, it's all about learning to pivot. That's what I've heard, like, throughout my high school career. You have to learn to pivot, to see all the obstacles thrown at you, like, no matter in your personal life, in your school life, in your professional life, pivot. You'll be okay at the end of the day. You just have to adapt to all your circumstances. And again, just keep that goal in mind. Hard work always pays off. So
I love that word pivot. Wow. That is beautiful because and basically what that means is just well, you just have to know that things are always gonna come at you. That's just life. Like I know a lot of times my kids are like, "Come on, when is this gonna end?" And I'm like,
it's
I
never
got
gonna,
bad news.
it's
This
never
is yeah. So it really a lot of it comes what it comes down to, and I'm sure you will agree, is how you deal with things, and how you pivot. Basically, like you just said, you could either let it like rock your world, or you can like be shaken for a little bit, and then you get back up and you're like, okay. I mean, that's one of the things. Listen, Arlene did karate with my kids, and I know they all have different views, right? But I do believe, no matter what you guys all say, that there's some great, beautiful things that came out of karate. And I think one of the things was what was the saying that Soki used to always say?
Oh, fall down 9 times and then come stand up 10 times. I think it was something like that.
There you
Knock
go.
down 9 times and come back harder like 10 times.
Yeah. So just always get back up. You're always gonna get knocked down. Someone's always gonna come at you. And it's just like just when you're like, you get blindsided. You're like, I didn't even see that coming. Yeah, it's gonna happen. That's life. But I do believe that sometimes it's just redirecting you somewhere else and to the right path, and it's saving you from something that could have taken you down another path that you didn't really want to go. So I'm forever indebted to Soki and his wife and all the folks who trained you guys, because I see it from a different angle from them, but a lot of discipline, and that discipline, and when you can do things that you didn't think you could do, it gives you mental. There's a mental training that goes into that, and you start realizing, wait a minute, I did that. I made it to this level, to this belt. I fought this many people. I did that competition, and that is tough. But you guys, I'm just so proud of all of you who've been through that, and you know expose your kids to different athletics too, and different things that will give them that competitive edge. My son tried out for the swim team. I kind of begged him to because I knew he's a natural swimmer, and he made it. Now he decided after he made the swim team, I'm never gonna be on that swim team. But he said to me recently, I made the swim team, and that met like did something for him. It's like that. You know how hard it is to make a swim team. He's explaining it to me, and I'm like, I don't know. So sometimes you just got to try something just to accomplish whatever level you're supposed to go to, and then keep it moving and take something from that. So anyway, I just want to thank you, my love, for spending this time with us, pouring out your heart, your soul, and just giving some great advice to parents and young people, because we all dream of having an Arlene and having a kid who just excels, and even when you're not excelling, you're still doing what you're doing, and then on top of that, you have such a big heart and you want to do so much and do so much with the community and help, which is important, because if all of us did something and gave back, we could change the world. And we all know, no shade to men, that it's women who change the world.
100%.
So
I think we forgot to mention about the role models program. That's definitely
definitely, definitely tell us all about it and encourage other young girls to do the same.
yeah, I joined the role model mentee program from the National Coalition of 100 Black Women my junior year. You typically join your freshman year, but I had to do something different, I guess, being me. But I it's definitely taught me about how volunteer work can go a long way. Like just from spending 2 hours handing out goods that like other communities and other people might need that you may not know that they might need. That
Mhm.
just, I feel like for me, I always compare myself to other kids and I'm like, oh, but what if I had this? What if I had that? This kind of like keeps you humbled and it grounds you and it say, I'm just lucky to have a roof over my house. I'm just lucky to be able to have such a great education that I have. And not many people have that. And I think that through the role models program, I've definitely learned that we have a lot and there's a lot to be thankful for. So that also is kind of like what pushes me more like forwards because I want everybody else to have that and more. So why not help out and have these people, just a little bit goes a long way.
It does. It does. And that's such a wonderful program. And the folks who run it are just doing such an amazing job. And so it was perfect for us because we've been a Girl Scout troop, I don't know, since you guys were in
I
fourth,
think
fifth grade. I don't even know when it started.
I,
I'm not sure. But I was like, okay, I've run out of ideas. These girls are getting old and they're looking at me like, I'm not going to another program. So when I found out about role models, like, oh, they can all become a part of role models. So I kind of like, yeah. So it's been such a blessing. And shout out to all the women who run this organization and so much they do in the community as a whole. So yay. So thank you, my love, again. Thank you for your time, your energy, and I'm just so excited about this journey. Enjoy your holidays, your holiday break, and then also your last semester, finish strong. We're actually planning a call for high school seniors who've already, decided, they where they want to go or not. And just to encourage them to finish strong. So I'd love for you to be a part of that. A lot of these young people are gonna go to Howard, have chosen Howard as their first choice school. And the president of the NAACP reached out to me and he's like, we gotta encourage these kids to finish strong and help them find scholarships. So maybe what we'll do is a power of exposure maybe once a month until the school year ends. And so we can just share information with you guys, help you guys fill out applications and stuff like that. Because sometimes parents and, and mentors, you can't just give kids stuff to do. Sometimes you have to show them, sometimes you have to literally just say, hey, let's open up this application together. I've done that with my kids. They're on their laptop, I'm on mine. I'm like, let's look at this school together. And it's just a training until they get to where they need to go. So take the time. We usually use like Saturday mornings. It's like, okay, let's focus on something for the future. Or Sunday nights is like a time where we kind of sit down and we all get our laptop for 1 hour. You can trust me if you do this. You can get your kids for 1 hour. I mean, I kind of use like, you want to eat dinner, right? So open your laptop and sit down. But it works and it pays off. It's worth the hassle, moms and dads. I know it's a pain, and sometimes it's just like, oh my God, they just won't listen. Trust me, it'll pay off. So thank you, my love. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll be talking to you real soon. Congratulations again. I'm so excited for your future.
Thank you for having me.
All
Thank you
right.
so
Bye. Mwah. Bye, darling.